Hey everyone, I'm Tarek Morshed with the Morshed Group at Sothebys, where we specialize in representing entrepreneurs and founders in their residential real estate needs. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Home Podcast, where we interview Austin's most successful men and women and discuss their business journeys as well as the entrepreneurial home that really empowers them to thrive, both in business and in life. During COVID, we are changing our video podcast format to deliver everything to you via Zoom with the intention of still delivering on amazing values, idea shares, as well as supporting our fellow business owners and entrepreneurs in a very challenging time.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Home Podcast here in Austin, Texas, featuring incredible local entrepreneurs that are in all places of scaling their businesses and visions. Today we've got Ryan Gnesin. Guys, I think this is a pretty awesome episode because Ryan's like a trailblazer is my experience of him. I think it's specifically what he trailblazes in is, scaling. So if you're a listener who's really trying to figure out how to scale and how to scale quick and fast, but effectively, this is the episode for you. Ryan, you and I met recently through Tim Donahue, who's actually been a recent guest, also an amazing commercial real estate man. I feel like we just hit it off right off the bat around strategy, analysis, and execution, and figuring out how to pivot and all of that within real estate. But just I could really sense like the way you operate and your mind and the way it operates. It's like the quintessential entrepreneurial mind. Always on the go, always on the run, strategizing 20 different directions at one time. So just really enjoyed every conversations we've had. Kind of lights me up and really in my kind of same path of thinking and modality and approach in life. So folks, I'm gonna, normally I don't do this, but since we're gonna make a little bit of this bent on this episode all around scaling up quickly, I'm actually going to read Ryan's bio a little bit verbatim. In 2016, Ryan took a giant leap into the unknown. He left a lucrative 11-year career at Glencore to move to the States and pursue an unexpected business venture, retail arbitrage of name brand shoes on Amazon. From there, he and co-founder James Stein scaled the business to 15 million plus in revenues in just 1 year. It's pretty amazing. On the heels of this colossal success and always with incredible foresight, Ryan capitalized on his newfound expertise, pivoting to the role of fresh on the scene business model of Amazon aggregator. And so Elevate Brands was born. Today, Elevate buys consumer leading CPG brands and elevates them to their full potential with the support of a growing 110 plus team of operators in 10 plus countries. With more than 25 brands on the roster and a Series B round fresh behind him, Ryan's sights are set on becoming a top 10 global consumer products company by 2030. Which, by the way, Ryan, number one, I love the bio because it's short and it just packs a punch and really says what it needs to say. So congratulations on just being the trailblazer and the entrepreneur you are. Number two, I don't know why it didn't hit me before, but literally there's two people I've got to introduce you to that are right in your fairway, both locally and on a national level. And I think you guys would hit it off, and I have a feeling there's probably some intersections of business and opportunity for you guys. Amy Stedman's one, and Brett Mays is another with Bamco. Anyway, so enough of the bio, man. Tell us about, like people have heard about the bio, but like let's really hear who Ryan is as a human being and what his journey's been, how he got to be an entrepreneur, what brought him to Austin and why Austin, like what fires you up and why are you an entrepreneur?
Yeah, man, it's first of all, it's fun being with you and always great chatting. How did I get it? It kind of just happened. It wasn't like I kind of dreamt as a kid of being an entrepreneur, right? It just kind of happened. So, I mean, I remember kind of out of school, I started doing some sales stuff. When I was in school, I started doing some sales roles, at my last year of school. And that gets you fired up and that gets you hooked on, especially when you're a commission-based person, like, you're in charge of how much money you make, right? And so you have no one else to blame. Like, it's up to you to kind of make that work. So that, I guess, was a good initial training. And then, I worked, one of my first jobs, I worked as a life insurance broker, believe it or not, right? I kind of got a financial planning license in Sydney, Australia. And for a few months, I was a broker. And I kind of hated that, right? I mean, it was like you were selling, but you were selling on the negative end of the spectrum. In the sense that, like, well, what are you going to do if something happens to your family? Like, I just didn't lie. Just kind of didn't. So I learned like from that experience but I worked with some great people. So I learned that, working in a small company is super, super exciting, and working with good people is really interesting. But, you got to just kind of pick something that just kind of resonates with you, and you don't know until you try. People say, you've got to find something you're passionate about. But the truth is, like, you don't know what it is until you experiment with a lot of different things. So I tried that and it didn't work. And the key was that I made a decision quickly. Within probably like 6 or 7 months, I was like, yep, this isn't for me. Like, what's next, right? And then I got a job with Glencore, which is, the world's largest commodities trading company. And, it took me like 10 months to actually get the job, like tons of interviews and whatnot. And so anyway, my first posting there was in Switzerland. So I spent a year in Switzerland and then, 9 years in Indonesia. One day they called me in after being there for like 10 months. They called me and said they want me to go to Jakarta. So I thought he said Chicago. So I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. He went, no, Jakarta, Indonesia. And I was like, well, I knew literally nothing except that, like, Bali was part of Indonesia, and it was, the world's third largest democracy. But beyond that, never really knew much. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, they said, yeah, for a young guy to go kind of cut his teeth and build something. This is in the commodity super cycle was going kind of crazy. This is end of 2007. So commodity markets were really kind of peaking. There was a real rush there for commodities. And so anyway, I went there knowing not much, but I found it very interesting. And it was just like a super interesting part of my life. I spent 8 years there, like spent a lot of time on an airplane. Was a very dynamic experience where, that company it's a large business. I mean, it IPO'd at a $70 billion market cap, but it was run very lean, and it was super entrepreneurial. And so young guys would get given a lot of autonomy. It'd say, here's a credit card, like, go meet customers, go travel, go do whatever it is you need to do, but like, just make the company money. And so I worked with some really, really smart people there who had a work ethic like you wouldn't believe, just crazy work ethic, weekends, nights, it didn't matter. Like, it was all encompassing. But as a young kid in my early 20s, like, I absolutely loved it. I worked with great people and built some really amazing relationships. And then, kind of middle of 2016, after being there for quite a long time, like, when you're traveling a lot all the time and you're staying in nice hotels and flying around and going to like cool sports, like, it was really fun, but eventually it becomes exhausting, right? And my kind of girlfriend hated me and kind of resented that I was literally taking 300 flights a year or something like that. It was insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a lot of travel. So anyway, I decided that I just had enough of that. I was feeling a little burnt out. And so I went back to Australia and my parents were there and I studied there and whatnot. And I went back there and I was there for like literally 6 weeks. And I turned to my mom and I said, listen, all my friends are married with kids. This place just like isn't as dynamic as like I feel like I need it to be, because I had been living this very kind of dynamic life, and like Sydney just didn't feel super, like it just didn't feel right to me. I figured I'd always go back there, but it didn't feel right. So I said, listen, I got some friends in New York City. I'm just going to go check out New York and see what that's all about.
And how old were you at this point, by the way?
So like I'm 30. This is 2016. So I was 34 at the time.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. And so anyway, I went to New York, and just like the second I landed in New York, I was like, ooh, I feel that buzz, I feel the energy. Like, it just felt really exciting to me, and I just started looking around for businesses to buy or businesses to start, and was just kind of trying to see. I was blank canvas. I'd made I'd made some good money. I was running a $500 million trading business in Indonesia, Southeast Asia. So I'd done all right for myself. So I was kind of just looking for something that would grab me. And I got some really good advice from a mentor of mine. And the guy said to me, and this is even before I left then, the guy said to me, if I could show you how to grow your business, right? Would you, because I was thinking about leaving at the time. I was thinking, before I even made the decision, I was thinking about leaving. And he said, if I could show you how to grow your business, would you then feel passionate? And he said, because I'm going to guess that the reason that you're looking to leave and you're not happy in the commodities world is you've either stopped growing personally, you've stopped growing and learning professionally, you're not making as much money as you used to, right? So he said there's probably an element of growth that has slowed, plateaued, or gone backwards. And I said, that's exactly right. How did you know? He said, because anytime anyone's ever told me they're unhappy, it's because they're not learning and growing anymore. And he said, the key to being happy is progress and learning and growing. That is the key to being happy. And as long as you're growing, and it doesn't matter what you're growing in. And he said to me, people talk about doing something you're passionate in. He said, in my experience, people are passionate when they're learning, and they're passionate when they're growing, and it doesn't matter what the subject is.
Brilliant.
I thought it was profound at the time, because I thought it was interesting. And so I left, and I decided, you know what? The first thing that I find that's kind of half interesting, I'm just going to kind of jump into. And as long as I'm learning and growing, I guess I'm going to be happy. Well, I started looking into it, and e-commerce just kind of drew my attention. I saw an article, I was reading about it, the growth in e-commerce. I went to a couple of Amazon conferences, because if you're going to do e-commerce, Amazon is the thing. And I found really, really interesting. So I'd go to these conferences, and this is 2016. And it was a very, very, and it still is to this day, by the way, a very fragmented marketplace. So I would meet all these sellers, and there were these. It was
very early in that industry at that time, too.
Yes, somewhat early, right? Somewhat early. The third-party seller marketplace was getting a lot of momentum. And so I would meet these sellers at these conferences, and guys were doing like 10, 20, $30 million in revenue. And it was run by themselves and maybe their husband or wife and 4 people in the Philippines. Wow. And I was like, and I thought that is just fascinating. So, and then I would kind of look around, and I'd there are no bankers at these conferences. There are no private equity guys at these, there's no VC guys. Where is everybody? There's a lot of money being made here by a lot of these fragmented. Where is everybody? And where's all the sophisticated capital? And it wasn't there. And so I decided I'm going to do something in the space. And, I told a couple of my buddies about it, and the guys thought I was just absolutely nuts. It's the Wild West kind of in the nascent industry. What are you doing? But I said, no,
exactly where you should be.
Well, you want to kind of do stuff where it's slightly off the beaten path, where you don't want to be the first guy, because if you're the first guy, you get arrows in your back, right?
Right.
The first guy to charge. But when you see there's a little bit of momentum already, right, and you can see there's something there, well, then I went in there. I figured, if these guys are running a $20, $30 million people with a handful of, well, what if I went and raised a lot of money and sort of built a big team? Well, how big could my business be then? And so to sell on Amazon is kind of a broad brush generic thing you could do, but there's a lot of kind of nuance to that. So there's a number of different models you can use to sell on Amazon, right? The first one would be private label, where you would kind of, develop your own brand, and, whether it's from China or US or whatever it is, you develop your own brand and sell it. So I decided I'm going to spend the year of 2017 just kind of testing a lot of the different models. So I launched 4 private label products, right? Now everyone said to me, why don't you just launch one? I said, well, because if I launch one, I'm not going to learn as fast as if I launch 4, right? so I just decided I'm going to launch 4 products. I'm not
classic entrepreneur.
And at the time, I had been to a couple of Tony Robbins conferences in 2016, and Tony's all taking massive action. If you're going to do something, take massive action. Action is the cure-all. Right. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to take massive. I'm not going to launch 1 brand. I'm going to launch 4. And then I'm also going to test the retail arbitrage model, which you mentioned in my bio, which is retail arbitrage, where you actually go and buy a physical product from a brick and mortar store, and then you'd buy the physical product. You'd buy a pair of Nike shoes. Let's say you go to Marshalls or you go to a Nike outlet store, and you buy a pair of Nike shoes, and then you sell it on Amazon. And there's all sorts of technology you can use to evaluate whether that's a good purchase or a bad purchase before you actually buy it. So there's the private label, the retail arbitrage. You can do the same thing online arbitrage using software, where you could go to a discount store online and buy a product and then physically ship it and then sell it up on Amazon. And then there's the wholesale approach, which is where you get like a list of closeout inventory. So I would get like, I'd find some like distributors for like Adidas and Reebok and New Balance, and I'd get a list of like hundreds of thousands of SKUs or products. And I would use a combination of kind of software and manual analysis to cherry pick and figure out which SKU is the best one. So like, is it the Adidas Ultra Boost 2017 men's size
crazy,
or is it the women's, blue size 7 as an example? So you could really cherry pick which one you wanted. And so that's what we used to do. And so having tested all of those things, the thing that really kind of worked best for me was the wholesale approach, because retail arbitrage is not super scalable because it's very labor intensive. You got to go physically to the store, back up the truck, load the truck, and so I kind of had some fun doing that. Actually, physically myself was doing it for a while. And made some really great margins there. And anyone can do that, by the way. Like anyone who wants to sell on Amazon could go and do that if you wanted to. You just literally go today, go to a friends and family sale whenever that is on Nike, at Nike. Go and buy a bunch of Nike shoes, sell it on Amazon, and you learn. And you start small, and you just learn, and you'll test, and you'll see, and you'll get some confidence. Wow, it's sold, and I made it. And you'll start, so that's what I did. I started really small, and I just kind of doubled down on whatever was working. And I killed pretty quickly whatever was not working, and that's it. And the thing that really kind of took off for us was this wholesale model, right? Where you get lists of hundreds of thousands of SKUs and then buy the ones you wanted and sell it on Amazon. So 2017, 18, 19, that's what I was doing for the most part.
Wow.
And then kind of 2019. We decided that buying some of these small private label brands on Amazon was really a great opportunity, because at the time they were super cheap. You could pay like 3 times EBITDA or 3 times annual profits. Wow. And so that was super cheap. And so I bought the first business end of 2019. 2020, we were helped by the pandemic because e-commerce business. And so we bought another 5 businesses, 5 of these small brands, 2020. And then we closed like a $50 million Series A round in February of 2021. And so that's when things really started scaling. We bought another 15 businesses in the first half of this year. And then we closed our Series B 2 weeks ago as a $250 million Series raise. And now we have 120 people on the team, and we're scaling super fast. We're kind of buying 3 or 4 businesses a month at this point. And so, yeah, man, we've got a lot of momentum, and it's a pretty exciting, pretty fun time for us.
Yeah, it sounds what a trailblazing journey. I love it. And I love that you actually started. And this is, for our listeners and for all the entrepreneurs and the founders, like, you really tested like something small, but then when it worked, you went big quick, and you figured out how to make that happen. And speaking for myself, it's I know that I can be okay. Well, I got to make it kind of perfect and make it really get it right. And instead of like, hey, you know what? There's a viable model here. Go. And then figure it out as you go, and you can scale. And yeah, there's going to be pain throughout it, and et cetera. But like, that's the ticket. You just got to go.
I'm a bull in a china shop sometimes. Like, I like to break a few things on the way, and as long as you embrace the fact that this isn't going to be a smooth journey, like if you want to be you really have to embrace that fact that it's not going to be smooth, and you need to figure stuff out, and there's no way to figure it out without making a bunch of mistakes. And you just have to recognize, like, you will make mistakes. And by the way, every time you make a mistake, get your checkbook out, because it costs money, right? Like you can make as many mistakes as you want in business, but every mistake you make just costs you money. Okay, well, if you in your mind know that you're going to make a few mistakes, okay, cool. Well, like, fine, lean into it and realize that, in order to find and Jeff Bezos says this all the time. He says, Amazon is Amazon because they experiment a lot. And if you knew it was going to be successful, and if you knew it was going to be successful, well, then it's not an experiment, right? And so a lot of people, they look at something and they say, well, unless it has a very, very high percentage chance of success, I'm not going to give it a shot, right? Whereas Amazon takes the approach, and Bezos takes the approach, I'm going to do things even though there's a relatively low chance of success. But if it is successful, the success dramatically will outdo the cost of the experiment.
Yeah.
Right. So asymmetric risk reward is what you call it. And if every decision you made in your life had asymmetric risk reward, where the downside is capped to this and the upside is several times that, then like over time, if just purely based on the numbers and stats, you're going to be very successful.
Man, I absolutely love that. And I think that's a really powerful concept for people to understand. And there's some nuggets in here that I want to make sure that we're all getting, right? Because these are, it sounds like, truly keys to scaling quickly, right? Embrace the fact that there's going to be chaos in scaling, right? Because so many people will stop and want to get it perfect and get scared of all the issues and challenges, whether it's people to money to whatever, right? Understand that the mistakes are going to cost you money, but there's a great ROI on it. And then kind of followed and somewhat related to this third point of asymmetrical, what you call asymmetrical risk reward?
Yeah, risk reward, asymmetric risk reward. So
yeah,
like
what a powerful concept that is.
Yeah, it's something to really keep front of mind, right? You want, as long as your upside is greater than your downside, and you make all decisions on that basis, right?
Yeah.
If I'm gonna go, if I'm gonna buy a new business, like for example, when I was thinking about buying some shoes, I would go, if I buy a pair of Adidas Ultra Boost at 50% below wholesale, because that's what I could get it for. I could buy 50% below wholesale. Okay, so and wholesale is usually 50% of retail. So I'm buying a $100 pair of Adidas at $25. Now it's last year's product, but most people on Amazon don't care that it's last year's product. And by the way, it has the benefit of lots of reviews because it's been selling for a while. So like, I know that the most I can lose on that pair of shoes, because there's a street there for that product. I mean, I always sell it to someone else.
Right.
Pair of Adidas shoes, I can always sell it to someone else.
Right.
Right. I know my downside is maybe if I'm paying $25 for it, maybe I'm going to lose $3 or $4 on it. Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But I could sell that thing at 20%, let's say below retail. And so my upside is maybe I can make $15 per pair, whereas my downside is $3. All day long, that's a good purchase. And if you
100%. I mean, yeah, at worst, you're at break even or really a little bit above, and maybe it's not a profit center, but your downside is so low that why wouldn't you take that risk versus waiting for the right opportunities all the time and not taking anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm getting some real nuggets for myself here to take into my team next week. They're gonna be like, man, Ryan and Tarek can't get together anymore because, like you, I'm always like, hey, we got to move fast and trust our gut and instincts. Double down on that. If we're doing things the right way and we really believe in it, we're not going to be wrong most of the time. But we got to be willing to be wrong when we really know what our product or our space, and that there's risk inherent in some of it, no matter what. But you got to double down on that. You got to grow. You got to go. So embrace. Yeah. Anyway, awesome stuff. Yeah. So to kind of wrap up this journey part of our conversation, man, why Austin? It's like you could be doing what you're doing anywhere and everywhere, and New York is certainly, I mean, sure, because of COVID, a lot of people left epicenters like New York. And but at the same time, it's still New York and it's going to come back, right? Yeah. So why Austin and in this trailblazing journey of scaling up?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I love New York, and my wife's parents are there and whatnot. So I mean, like, we're always going to be sort of close with New York. As I was, COVID was obviously 2020 in New York was a difficult year when you're sitting in your tiny little apartment. And so we just made the decision as we were, as I was interviewing people, because although I closed my Series A only in February, we knew that was coming. I mean, we knew that was going to happen. So we started ramping up hiring during, the fourth quarter of 2020. Okay. And as I was interviewing people, I would just ask people the question, because it's a difficult thing. Guys, what do you want to do? Where do you want to live? Would you come and live in New York when the pandemic's over? Like, what are you thinking? right? Because like there was this massive structural shift in where people wanted to be and where they wanted to work. And I just made the decision that I want to hire the best possible people wherever I find them. So because I didn't know when people would be going back to work, I mean, it could have been 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. So I just said, let me just hire the best people, and we'll figure it out after COVID ends where people are going to be. Do we want everyone moving to one city or not? I said, we'll figure it out later. But as I would talk to people, I would say, okay, well, where do you want to be? Do you want to come to New York? And a lot of people would say, no, I don't really want to go live in New York. Okay, well, where would you like to go live? How about Miami? Maybe Miami. How about Austin, Texas? Yes. So like a lot of people were like, yeah, I'd love to live in Austin, Texas. And it was just kind of anecdotal, and so like one of the other guys on my team, Jeremy, who's our sort of chief of M&A, he was very keen on Austin. And so he was sending me all these articles about how great it was. And like, I'm anecdotally learning that a lot of people want to live there. So I said, okay, cool. Like, let's set up an office in Austin and I'll go live in that office because it sounds like an amazing city. And I've been to visit a couple of times. And there's obviously tax benefits and whatnot for being there.
Yeah,
being here, I should say. And so we, now we have an office. We have a couple of offices in New York. We got one in the city, one in Brooklyn. We got an office here in Austin, and we got people all over the world, to be honest, all over the country and all over the world. So, we're also still grappling with this thing where we'd love people to be in the same place more often. And we want more and more people to come to the Austin office. And I think that will happen over time. But again, it's a little messy, right? I mean, it's like, I wish it was, everyone was in one place sitting here, but it's not the case. But we're just kind of making it work.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm curious, real quick. What were the age ranges that you were anecdotally hearing from people? Like, I'd love to live in Austin, or I'd go there and work there, right? I'm just curious, what's the age range
of those people? I mean, there was no particular age. I mean, like, I'd say most of our team is probably in their kind of 20s and maybe kind of mid 30s. We have people in their 60s working with us. I mean, we've got a full range, but I'd say like a lot of people in their kind of 20s and 30s were very, very excited about Austin.
Yeah. That's that's what I was figuring, but I was curious. Because we do. People of all age groups love Austin, it seems, right? But especially in the employment market, that is just such a draw, it seems, for that generation and that range, right? And really anybody from Gen X to Gen Y to millennials to Gen Z. I mean, it seems to anybody in that span, but specifically.
Yeah, for sure. And for us, I mean, one of the big considerations was we needed a place that had a deep talent pool. Right. And, part of the reason we didn't go to, let's say, in Miami is not as much great talent in Miami. So like we wanted, because we're growing so quickly. I mean, we started this year with 20 people and now we have 120, and we'll probably finish the year with, probably 200 or thereabout, maybe more than that. So we're growing so quickly, and Austin's a great place with just so many talented, awesome people. So that's another great reason to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. And, for our listeners, how do you manage 120, 130 people in many ways remote locations, right? How many managers do you have managing that many people in different places?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are certain like.
Or are you guys the model that you learned? Here's the credit card, just go make it happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can't work that way. I mean, like it. Look, first of all, I like to say that I like to bring on people to join the team and hire people where they tell me what to do, not that I have to tell them what to do, right? So like,
I love that. What a nugget that is.
Yeah. So like, I like to hire people that are already very driven. We have our values, and we some people put values up on a wall and never look at them. Like, we believe very strongly in our values, and so like initiating and being bold with your action is one of the things that's core. So like, we hire people that have a lot of it. We give them autonomy, and we hire really smart and really good, talented people, first of all. And then secondly, like, you give people KPIs and you give people goals and targets, and you say, go hit it. And, we like to say we're kind of stubborn on our destination, but flexible on our journey. Right. So, so how you get there, you figure it out. How you get there is kind of up to you. But we'll give you the tools and resources and support you know, and you go and figure out your own way to get there. And so like we found that kind of model works for us.
Nice. Very, very nice. Got it. So, you know, one of the questions we've been asking for the last year, which, you know, probably not a fair question for you, you know, like how's the company been affected by COVID, right? And for a lot of businesses, you know, that are not digital, it's been a challenge, right? In different ways, but then there's been so many success stories of pivoting and figuring it out, and so many success stories in the true heart of entrepreneurism. You know, I think that for you guys, obviously COVID actually from a business perspective really helped, right? Or supported at least growth at a minimum. So maybe for our listeners, how about sharing what happened during COVID-19 that you guys learned, and where did, like, how did you improve upon the boost that you were getting, right? Like, what was the business nugget that you got out of that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say this. You know, for years, I would talk to my business partners and say the next crash is going to be the greatest money-making opportunity of our lifetime. We don't know when the crash will be. We don't know what it's going to look like or what's going to cause it. But like I had this view that it would be huge because you had one of the longest bull markets ever, right? I mean, after 2008. And by the way, in 2008, you know, I had just kind of started. I was just kind of in the workforce. I didn't have a lot of capital behind me or anything like that. In fact, I didn't have any. But I had some of my mentors like did really well out of that because they would buy property cheap and they would buy, you know, invested in the stock market after collapse. So I had this belief that, you know, when things really go to shit, that's the opportunity for you to get really, you know, it's the old Warren. It's all the old Warren, you know, all the analogy, Warren Buffett's thing, you know, first of all, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. But also you want to be fearful. You want to be greedy when other people are fearful and fearful when other people are being greedy. Right. Yep. And so like the time to be, and so like, so, you know, I've been reading all those books and it was all, and I always had this view that like when the market crashes, I don't know how, but I'm going to figure out how to take advantage of that opportunity. And we were talking about it for years. And so, you know, finally when COVID happened, well, it's in reality, all of a sudden it's easier said than done because now you're sitting there going, there's a huge amount of uncertainty. You know, what to do. People are saying, well, the pandemic could last for many years. The stock markets could never recover. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, there was just all this this kind of panic and fear. And so the first thing I did was I first of all, like, it just went and invested a bunch of money in the stock market. Okay, first of all, when the thing really dropped dramatically in whenever it was like March, April, I went in and invested a bunch there. Okay. And then my business partner, James, and I looked at this opportunity and said, okay, what do we do? Because at the time we had only acquired one business, okay? And we had launched, we hadn't even launched, we were about to launch a brand. So that little strategy of acquiring businesses, which today is our core model and has huge momentum. Well, when the pandemic happened, we were just experimenting and testing that. We didn't know that would be the thing. And our shoe sales, because that was our primary business, was shoes. Our shoe sales kind of fell off a cliff for a couple of weeks there, and we're down like kind of 30%, 40%. Okay.
Oh wow, yeah. Because
so like it wasn't. So there was a lot of uncertainty. Okay, so it wasn't. It wasn't
thanks
like
for clarifying that because that's a damn good point, right? Yeah. People just see the later, but that no one sees, including me. Like, oh, wait a minute, there was actually a lot of pain and worry. Initially when it happened, and no one knew what was going to happen.
No one knew. So James and I looked at each other. He's my business partner, and we said, okay, well, shoe sales are down. Sure, obviously, because who's buying shoes? Like everyone's going to be locked up at home. Okay, well, what product categories are going to be doing great? So we like start researching and thinking about it. Well, it's all the consumables, grocery, right? So James and I are saying, well, we're in the shoe business. How do we make money in the grocery business? And we said, well, look, the reality is whether you're selling shoes or sugar on Amazon, the process of, because we know like the process of selling a pair of shoes or a backpack, because we were selling, you know, soft goods, so clothing and apparel, and the process of selling a backpack or a pair of shoes is 90% the same. So we figured, okay, well, selling sugar on Amazon is probably not that different from selling shoes. So, and so we started researching, well, flour's doing really well at the moment. Flour sales have gone crazy because for whatever reason, everyone's baking bread. Everyone's baking. For whatever reason, like there's a strange human thing that happens when people are fearful. They start baking. It's like a thing that happens. Okay, there was like a whole bunch of research reports we read about it. So we were like, okay, well, James used to work at Restaurant Depot. Now, Restaurant Depot, for those who don't know, it's the low-cost leader in food service distribution. It's basically a supermarket on steroids. So it's the supermarket for restaurant owners. If you're a restaurant owner, you want to go buy 3 potatoes, you want to buy 3 massive bags of potatoes. So it's a restaurant it's a supermarket for restaurant owners, and you carry around these massive trolleys, and you kind of load it up with 50 pounds of meat and whatever else you do, right? So James has some experience working there. So we said, James, why don't we go to Restaurant Depot and just start buying like consumables, and we'll put it up for sale on Amazon, because a lot of people don't have access to it. So first we go look around, and we're like, I wonder if they have any toilet paper, because toilet paper was going crazy. No, they're all sold out of toilet paper. Okay.
I remember that.
Yeast. Let's go buy up all the yeast we could find. So we literally rented some 25-foot trucks. James and I driving around, rented these massive trucks. We loaded it up with as much flour, yeast, sugar, Campbell's soup, like you name it. We just loaded it up with groceries. And we figured out, we spoke to our 3PL warehouse, and we're like, guys, we're switching, no more shoes for the time being. We're going to grocery. So we just started selling grocery on Amazon. And the sales, we couldn't keep it in stock. The sales it was just flying kind of off the shelves, just flying, because there was a real need. People needed groceries. So that was great. So we were looking at that, and so we spent a bunch of time doing that. Then what we noticed was that one of the companies in our industry who was acquiring businesses raised money. They did their Series C at $1 billion valuation.
Wow.
And so they did it after 2 years of launching the company. It was the fastest ever US profitable unicorn. And so we looked at that and said, okay, this grocery thing is fine, but like, how sustainable is that? Probably not very. Although we did do really nicely in a very short period of time, but we were saying, what else can we do here? Where else is the opportunity? Well,
and real quick, before you move on, man, look, that's just brilliant. And I want to just make sure that our listeners are getting that, right? Like, pivot when you've got to make things happen. And because everyone freaks out and does the same thing that they're doing, and they go right down the chute. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a C-suite person, like, you've got to pivot and move quick and figure out how do you either survive in the meantime, or what's the new direction. And you guys did it brilliantly. So I just want to.
Well, again, like, it was, we experimented, right? We didn't know. We went, and one day it was bought. We loaded up we had a Toyota Sienna minivan for the company, but we used to just drive around for shoe stuff. Well, we just loaded that little minivan on the first day and put it up and sell, and it sold in 2 seconds. So cool. A few days later, we rented a slightly bigger truck. Everything sold. Then we went to it was starting small, testing, and as you said, massive action, just kind of pivoting, massive action. So we're testing this out. Then we realized this company raises money at $1 billion valuation. They're acquiring Amazon businesses. So James and I read this and look at each other and go, we've just bought a business. We bought it in 2019, and it's now going really well. It had a few hiccups, but now it's doing really well. And we launched a brand which has gone crazy, this is June now of 2020. And that business that we launched, so both of those businesses are doing really well. Those are kind of private label brands. So we said, we know what we're doing. We've now got a lot of years of Amazon experience, and now we have specific 2, very strong proof points for private label. Why don't we go buy a few more of these businesses? And so that's what we decided to do. So we went and we decided we're going to go allocate a budget, and we're going to buy several more of these businesses, and we'd start looking for some capital, because if you're going to go buy businesses, you need a lot of capital.
Yeah.
So we started talking to some financiers, and they kind of liked our story, and they kind of liked our energy, and they also we're also trying to pivot and figure out where the opportunities were, and I think people realized pretty quickly that commerce is where there's a big opportunity. And suddenly we were saying the same things, because we had been talking to investors for a while, but we're saying the same things, but previously no one was really giving us a lot of attention. And all of a sudden, everyone's looking at us going, these guys are Amazon experts, and Amazon's where the game is. So let's back these guys. And so sometimes you kind of just need to do your thing and wait for the wave to catch you.
Right.
And for sure, there was a lot of, like, we were just doing our thing, running our business, doing our thing. Finally, the wave caught us. That was luck for sure. I mean, there's no question about it. That's luck. Okay. But we had put in the hard yards for several years before we got lucky, as it were. And we always knew e-commerce was going to continue to grow. It kind of got a 10-year bump in, e-commerce grew 10 years in the space of like 4 months.
Exactly.
Right? So we got really lucky there. And then all of a sudden it was game on. The investors were keen and they wanted to back us. And then we just started buying more businesses. And, we bought another 5 or 6 businesses in 2020. And again, it was just kind of momentum and doubling down on our success.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great COVID and pivot story.
That was our COVID story.
Yeah. And one quick question, as you guys are acquiring these companies, right? I mean, it sounds like you said, it's a pretty fractured market, and there's a lot of these smaller businesses that maybe are doing well, but hey, if they've got an opportunity to cash out, they will. It's a good payday for them, right? And maybe they don't have either the vision, desire, or wherewithal to scale, right? And so it sounds like, there's some intersection there where you guys are coming in. Are you having to really change a lot of things and bring in your systems, or are these companies that are, hey, they work, we can keep people in place, and then now it's just a matter of taking it further with our resources?
Yeah. So, often it depends on how big the business is. When we started buying businesses, we were buying really small businesses. They were doing maybe, let's say, the first couple of businesses were doing like $100,000 in EBITDA or profit, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. So those businesses were only doing maybe kind of $500,000 in revenue. So they were pretty small businesses. And so there wasn't enough room to kind of keep the seller on or other people on. So we would just buy the business from them. And as we've bought bigger and bigger businesses, we tend to keep more and more people on, right? Because now we're buying much, much bigger businesses, right?
Makes sense.
So when a business comes with 20 people, well, you're buying the business, you want to keep as many of the people as you can, as long as they're obviously good, and many times they are, otherwise you wouldn't be buying the business. But yeah, so we go and implement kind of best practice across all the various kind of growth levers. So, oftentimes these entrepreneurs are super scrappy and very smart and done a brilliant job. But it's difficult for an entrepreneur who's running a small business to be world-class at supply chain and branding and marketing and creative and, channel expansion, geographic expansion, launching new SKUs, product development. It's difficult for someone, and, advertising and PPC, it's really difficult for someone to be world-class at all of those things, whereas we can be, and we are, right? We have world experts in all of those various categories. And so we can really turbocharge a business after we've acquired it, right?
I love that. Okay, got it. What a great model.
And sometimes we JV with sellers. So sometimes the seller says, you know what, I'm not interested in selling 100%, but I feel like I've taken the business as far as I can. I want to take some money off the table and chips off the table. But I want to stay involved, and I believe in my brand, and I want to keep growing it. And I love, for example, launching products, but I hate managing supply chain. So we say, great, let's partner. We have people who love supply chain. That's another thing I've learned is anything you hate doing, there's probably someone who loves it, right? And vice versa. And so we would come in and say, great, let's JV. You continue doing your thing. We'll support you, give you all the resources. We'll help you with influencer campaigns and PR campaigns and things that you haven't done before, and we'll manage the supply chain. And then you focus all your effort on, for example, new product launches and, figuring out what the customers want and all that stuff. And so we have found those type of JV partnerships to be very successful. And we've also been successful in just buying a business outright and implementing our own kind of views and best practice to grow that business.
I really love that, Ryan. And again, gold nugget for listeners and entrepreneurs here. There's so many ways to skin the cat. And I think too often in business, there's one way or it doesn't work, which is either, hey, I got to acquire and then I do everything, or, instead of outsource or outsource the things I'm not good at, right? Me being in real estate and on the development side, outside of the client practice, right? That's one of our kind of keys is that where we've been really successful is instead of just going and buying the dirt or the property, right? A lot of times someone who's got a large slug of land, hey, if they sell, where are they going to put the money anyway, in their eyes, right? And they would love to maybe have a piece of a larger development, but they don't have the wherewithal. So the JV situation's perfect. And, it's pretty unbelievable how many people don't do that and take that approach. And sure, it doesn't work for everybody, but for the ones it works for both parties, if it's really, making some assumptions about the people involved, it's such a killer model, and it makes the numbers sing. So that's really amazing that you guys are doing that, because in the space of business acquisitions, you don't hear about that approach too often.
Yeah. As you say, lots of ways to skin a cat and being flexible. And, we also had to figure that part out, because, there's buying businesses, but okay, what kind of businesses do you want to buy? And and what's the structure for buying businesses? And yeah, there's so many ways to skin a cat. If you're a curious person and you're flexible, right, and you're open to new ideas and you're curious, the world is your laboratory, and you test and experiment, and you just find interesting opportunities and you try them out, and you see what happens. And that's the thing about business in general. I'm sure everyone listens to it. It's such a fun game, and it just pulls from all of your skills, like every skill you've ever developed in your life, right? Analytical skills, business skills, relationship skills, whatever. And you learn what you're good at, and you kind of just try and double down on what you're good at. And then where you're weak, it's important to know where you are weak and partner with people who can compensate for that, right? If you're a super analytical person but you suck at selling, great. Hire someone who's great at selling and who sucks at analytics, and find a partnership that complements you. And that applies to a team of people who are trying to build a business. That applies to us acquiring businesses and growing that. It applies to the property space, right? Partnering with guys like you to help them scale their portfolio. It's there are certain principles that just kind of apply everywhere.
Yeah, indeed. I love it. And talking about ways to skin the cat. So I'm in a meaningful space, basically a space that you could rent by the hour, et cetera, right? Because literally an hour before we started, oh, wait a minute, office is being remodeled. My house had flooded from Snowvid. If people are from Austin, they know what I'm talking about. So that's going through a remodel. And the other office is, that's just not going to work. It's going to be too dark in there. What am I going to do, right? And quick pitch to Damon Neff, one of my mentors in Austin for entrepreneurs, amazing man. And he's got a new concept called Meaningful Spaces, and you can literally pop in and grab a space as you need. And I'm in this space right now, and I just had to kind of figure it out really quick on the fly, and figure out how to skin the cat, if you will. And we've got to make those decisions literally every minute as entrepreneurs, right? Sure. And this one was inconsequential in the big picture, right? But it is the belief that I can always figure it out in the minute, in the moment, in the half hour, in the hour, and I'm not even going to freak out about it, which is as an entrepreneur, you got to have that mindset.
I think, I totally agree. I think having the decision-making muscle is an important one to hone. And, sometimes, making the wrong decision is better than making no decision, right? Because at least when you make a decision, even if it's the wrong one, okay, well, you learn, and then you learn what didn't work, and then you can pivot and then go to work. It's the indecision, I think, that kills. I think it's the indecision that's the most harmful thing.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. I love that. And part of the reason why I was saying that is I actually have to wrap here at 5 o'clock, which is right here, because I released the space for about that long. And before we wrap, I want to just ask one last question, and then also kind of just mention a few things before we wrap. So what is as an entrepreneur, for our listeners, right? How do you get into flow best, right? Because it's all about creativity and just being a great leader, being a great visionary, where and how do you do your best work? What are your little hacks or tricks around that? As well as if you're in a workspace, right? Whether it's at home or wherever, like what do you do to kind of get in, like kind of best practices around work and being the entrepreneur and creating and producing?
Yeah. So first I'll say that I don't really think about that much. What I have found to be the case is if you're excited about what you're doing and you're growing, as I pointed out earlier, I tend to just kind of bounce up in the morning and want to just start working, right? And I want to work on weekends and late at nights because I heard Gary Vee or someone once say like, you're doing something you really enjoy when it comes late at night and your head literally wants to hit the keyboard because you're so tired. Like you literally can't keep your eyes open and you're pissed off at the fact that your eyes have to close, right? And that's kind of how I feel a lot of the time is that like I don't need any encouragement or getting into the flow. Like I'm excited and passionate about what I'm doing because we're growing at such a fast pace. And like for me, this is kind of just super fun and exciting. So I just kind of wake up and go sit at my desk and grab a cup of tea or whatever it is. I don't drink coffee anymore and just kind of get on it. And as it relates to workspace, one of the things we're kind of grappling with right now is we have quite a nice workspace, a co-working space at Galvanize.
Oh, yeah, great space.
Yeah, it's a great space, but I don't have my own office, and I spend a lot of my time on calls, and like a lot of it's confidential investor stuff. So like I'm often running around looking for a private space to sit in. So that's something we're trying to solve because I need my own space. So I tend to spend a lot of time. I have a really nice. I'm sitting at home now, and I like my space here. So I spend quite a lot of my days at the moment just from home, and then I'll meet some of the team like for lunch or for dinners or breakfast, whatever it may be, or we'll go do some exercise together or whatever. So I'm just kind of also just figuring that we need a new office space and something we're working on as well.
Yeah, but also I guess what I'm hearing in it is that what's working for you right now best is to work at some level from home where you can, whether it's confidential or it sounds like even being able to get in a flow where there's not an interruption and like that, for other people, that works just fine to be around a bunch of people. I know for myself, when I'm really trying to hammer a bunch of stuff out and get into some real flow and ideation, it's got to be me and in a peaceful space so I can hammer it out.
Oh, agreed. No, I 100% agree. It depends on your personality. I actually work really well just sitting by myself with no distractions. But I feel it's important to daily and certainly weekly to like be with the team because we had breakfast this morning as a team, like a few of the senior guys, and like just the amount of value of just bouncing stuff off each other just over a breakfast was like invaluable. And then I could spend the rest of the day really kind of thinking about it and implementing some of the stuff we discussed. And so, yeah, I find that it's a combination for me that's helpful.
I love that. Awesome. Hey, so before we wrap, if someone's wanting to learn about Elevate Brands, if someone wants to, like you guys are kind of almost, you're a B2C company in essence, right? But it's not like you've got one website where everyone can buy anything, right? Everything and anything, right? So, but if somebody wanted to learn about you guys, maybe figure out how to purchase a bunch of your products somewhere, maybe figure out, hey, how do I invest in an amazing company like this? Where do they go?
Yeah, elevatebrands.com. You can go to the website. If people are looking for jobs or if they're looking to invest, I mean, they can, the company website or come to me directly, Ryan@elevatebrands.com. And,
nice.
Pretty easy. I'm pretty responsive.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And man, thanks for a powerful episode. It was just a blast, man. Just to get in there and talk shop about the journey, the entrepreneurial journey, right? Really, really appreciate it and always really enjoy just being with you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks very much for having me on the show and really appreciate it. Great chatting.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, this episode or past episodes, future episodes, www.themorshedgroup.com, all our social media handles, as you'll see on the screen here. Join us, be part of the movement, help each other out, grow. All ships rise with the tide. We've got an amazing entrepreneurial community in Austin. let's grow. All
That's
right,
it.
Ryan, we'll talk soon. And I'm fist bumping you here through the screen. Boom. All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. See ya. Thank you.